To order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for October 18th, 2021. Attending tonight in council, Jim Wheeler, myself, Kim Lobdell, Bill is here, and Michael Granetsky is attending via Zoom. We also have Stormwater Engineer Claudia Guy and Scott Endel for different agenda items. First, public appearances for non-agenda items. We do not have any tonight, I don't believe. Okay. All right. So then we'll move on to first item number 3, agenda review for potential private backyard drainage assistance program. And our own Claudia Guy will lead us off on this. We haven't seen Nick sign in yet, I don't believe. Okay. Yes. Okay. Dana, you're here for one of the agenda items, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I know which one it is. I'll call on you when we get to that one. Okay. All right. So Claudia, are you ready?
I am, yes. And I know Nick was very sick earlier today, so we'll see if he signs on.
Okay.
But if he doesn't, then I can cover his slides as well.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, perfect timing.
Oh, Nick just joined Claudia.
Wonderful. Okay. Hey, Nick, welcome.
Hey.
All right. Let me share my screen, and I'll go ahead and get started on this presentation here.
I don't believe so.
There we go. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. We're going to be talking about a potential backyard program to provide assistance for private drainage concerns. My name is Claudia Guy. I'm the environmental engineer for the city of Fitchburg, and I'm joined by Nick Hayden, who's a water resources engineer with EOR. So this project is being done as part of the Cheryl Drive stormwater study. Task 1, just it's a separate task, was to look at flash flooding analysis in the Cheryl Drive area. And then what we're talking about today is task 2, which is a potential citywide backyard drainage program. What we did as part of this task was looked at other local governments and what they do to provide aid for private drainage issues. And then eventually we will be putting together a recommendation to council for a potential new backyard drainage program. If approved, this would be a citywide program. And if you have any interest in taking a look at recordings or deliverables associated with this Cheryl Drive stormwater study, you can find all of that at the link at the bottom of the screen. And we're talking about task 2. Okay, so the agenda today, we're going to start with some background information, and then I'll hand it off to Nick to talk about his research about local and nearby programs, as well as regional programs that he looked at a little bit farther than just our neighbors to get examples of what these backyard programs might look like. And then we'll talk about next steps. And a big part of that section is just going to be seeing if there's any feedback we can get from the Board of Public Works on this type of program. So background information and common types of private drainage concerns. So we'll start with the concept of a common backyard swale. You see this in a lot of neighborhoods where you have the front yard, which drains to the street, and then you have the backyards that drain to a swale that carries the water downhill until it gets to the street. So that's what you see here. You can see that multiple homes are going to a common backyard swale. And what you might find here is that when the neighborhood was originally built, this swale might be a consistent pitch and it will drain properly. However, over time, that might change. So landowners might have projects that change the swale design, or there might be settling that occurs. In one way or another, the swale might just not work as effectively as it did in the past. And so in this example, you can see that there's a portion of the swale that's steeper than when it was originally designed, and there's also a portion that's shallower than when it was originally designed. And typically when you get under 1%, that's where you start having problems. So you might have bird bath areas, or if it's back pitched, you might have areas where the water stands there until it infiltrates or evaporates, for example. Another common issue that we see are just low-lying areas or flat areas that don't drain well. So what property owners are able to do in this situation, sometimes you can regrade those areas, bring in fill so that they do drain properly, or you might have to look into doing drain tiles, a private drain tile system, or even an inlet in this type of scenario. And then there are sump pump concerns, and just very basically, a sump pump is a submersible pump installed in a sump pit dug at the lowest point in the home. They typically discharge to grade, so just right outside your home on the ground, and they often only turn on when they're needed, such as after a heavy rain. However, if groundwater is high, you can run into a lot more problems with sump pumps, especially if they're running continuously for many months or even years at a time. And it can lead to several nuisance conditions, including ice buildup in the streets during the winter, algae buildup on sidewalks in the summer, extremely soft, soggy, and unmaintainable areas in your yard if you're discharging it to your backyard, for example. So the stormwater utilities role currently, just a little bit of background information here. So we do have a stormwater utility. It was established in 2002. We have, it provides funding to meet our current management responsibilities. The stormwater rates are set based on a rate study and reflect the city's current level of service for residents. And you can see these are just two documents that kind of talk about that. We have the most recent stormwater utility rate update on the left, and on the right, we have a document that talks about the types of maintenance that the city does. And the current level of service is primarily for city-owned stormwater facilities. So that includes inlets, manholes, storm sewers, all of that located within the city right-of-way or on city parcels or in public stormwater easements. In addition, the city, the stormwater utility maintains regional ponds, infiltration basins, fire retention basins, greenways, all of these things located on city property. And the current policy regarding issues on private property is that addressing stormwater issues on private property are the responsibility of the landowner. This includes, but is not limited to, grading to alleviate drainage issues, installation, maintenance, and repair of any private storm sewers, including drain tiles, discharge of private sump pumps, as well as driveway culverts. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick for municipal policy review. And Nick, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, let me just hold on a second. Okay, are we seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks, Claudia. So to kind of go over the municipal policy review goals. The first was really to understand how other local municipalities approach private drainage issues. We found that there was a lack of written or formal policies at, I think at all the cities we talked to. So we ended up having phone and email conversations with municipal staff at all of these locations to get a better feel for their municipality's approach on private drainage issues. The second portion, as Claudia mentioned, was to look to the larger region for examples of formal policies and programs. These were municipalities that had guidance available online, or were cities that City of Fitchburg staff knew about having a program in place or through other contacts. These typically required phone or email conversations for answers to detailed questions if the published materials they had didn't quite address all of our concerns. The local policy review, we looked at the cities of Madison, Sun Prairie, Middleton, and Verona. And I'm just going to run through each of those with kind of a paraphrase summary of their drainage policies. The city of Madison told us that during an existing street project, if there are known areas with high groundwater or persistent sump drainage, the city will install PVC stubs at the back of street inlets. When they do this, the city work within the right-of-way is assessed back to the property owner at 100%. And the property owners are also 100% responsible for creating and maintaining these private connections to the city installed stubs. Next, the city of Verona. So they told us that the city of Verona really doesn't get involved with fixing private property drainage issues, aside from perhaps visiting the site just to discuss things, but they don't recommend or get involved in the actual fix of any private rear yard drainage issues. But for cases where there's some pump discharge that's impacting the public right of way, the city may install public storm sewer for private property owners to connect to. And when they do that, the following conditions generally apply. They're always considered on a case-by-case basis, so there's no guarantee of a certain action by the city. It's much more likely to happen when it's a part of a street project, like street reconstruction or resurfacing, as well as where it benefits multiple properties and not just a single landowner. When these projects happen in the city of Verona, the city has often paid 100% of the costs of that storm sewer extension or inlets within the right of way. But again, the private connections to the system would be 100% responsibility of the property owner. The city of Middleton typically does not get involved in private drainage issues. They will allow and facilitate connection to public storm sewer when requested by property owners. Any city work in the right-of-way is usually assessed back to property owners at 100%, and connection costs are 100% the responsibility of the property owner. Therefore, there's typically no cost share or assistance on the city's part. And then this is the final local municipality, city of Sun Prairie. So their policies are that if there's a scheduled street project, the city may install rear yard surface drains to address common swale problems. So they specifically will work in backyard areas sometimes in terms of providing a storm sewer inlet. They will also potentially install sump pump feeder lines to address sump discharge problems. The likelihood of them doing this sort of city work project is greater for problems that affect multiple properties that are a public safety issue or are causing freeze-thaw road damage. So they've had situations where they get ice buildup from sump discharge or other discharge, and it's actually affecting the longevity and the condition of their roads. And so they view it as sort of a preemptive thing they can do. So in those cases where the city does get involved and create these facilities, the city is paying 100% for the surface drains and the feeder lines. And unlike the other couple I mentioned, they actually also pay for the connection of any existing buried sump pump connections. The property owner would pay 100% for any new buried connections or any other means of getting the water to these inlets that would be installed by the city. So next, I'll move on to the broader policy review. So we looked for examples of formal policies at the cities of Oshkosh, Sheboygan, Iowa City, Sioux Falls, and Wooddale, Illinois. And again, these were ones that were either known to city staff through previous project work or experiences, or they had documentation on these programs that was able to be found online. And therefore, this doesn't meant to represent some sort of a typical approach or assistance. It's just, these were examples of places that had formal documentation and policies related to backyard drainage and other private drainage issues. The city of Oshkosh has what they call a mini storm sewer or storm lateral program. And they have an annual budget for the city to install storm laterals and drains. And these drains go about 1 foot onto private property to be accessed by the property owner. The city pays 100% for the lateral and drain from their stormwater utility fund. The property owner pays 100% for any actual drainage connection, including maintenance. The city of Sheboygan has a mini storm sewer program. They also have an annual budget for installation of rear yard city storm sewer, which they require that anything installed in rear yards must serve multiple properties. The city pays 100% for rear yard drains, but they must be given a no-cost easement. The property owner then pays 100% for connection to the drains, including maintenance. And there's a requirement that if these are installed, the property owner must connect within 90 days. And additionally, the property owner pays all fence repair and landscape restoration. Next to Iowa City, so they have what they call their drain tile program. And this is similar to some of the others where if there's been a public hazard area that's been identified, the city may install drain tile collection system in the right of way. The city would pay 100% for that collection system if there was a verified public hazard. The property owners would pay 100% for connecting to that collection system. Sioux Falls, North Dakota, they've experienced a number of problems due to high groundwater and other water pooling in low areas. And so their sump pump collection systems are installed in all new developments. And the city may install a retrofit if there's a clear public need. In those cases, the city pays 100% for the collection system and the property owner pays 100% for connection. And there's a requirement for connecting when these are built, but it's not typically strictly enforced. And lastly, the city of Wooddale, Illinois, they have a more general cost share program for resolving private drainage issues. And this program can address solutions for both common swale or sump pump issues. And with this, the city pays 50% up to $3,000 for approved private projects. The property owner would then assume ownership and maintenance for any connections to the public storm sewer that would be made. There's also a fairly extensive criteria for being eligible for this program. So you need documentation of the problem, including what types of rain or snow or other conditions cause the problem, as well as how long water pools after rainfalls or other conditions that cause problems. You need to get multiple bids for these types of repairs. as well as, post-construction inspections and other requirements. And they, again, prioritize solutions that would help solve a problem on multiple properties rather than a single landowner. So just to quickly run back through all that again, the local policies, so the city of Madison installs stubs in the right-of-way that are 100% assessed back to the property owner. The city of Sun Prairie will pay for rear yard surface drains, as well as sump pump feeder lines, and including replacing previously existing connections at 100%. But in that case, the property owner would pay 100% for new connections. The city of Milton and the city of Verona don't have assistance for backyard drainage issues, but they will, in some cases, install some pump collection systems, or at least Verona will. The city of Milton, I think, has done that as well, but those would be assessed back to the property owner, typically in Middleton, whereas Verona has covered those sump pump collection systems in the right-of-way with the stormwater utility funds. Private connections to that collection system would be 100% property owner responsibility. And then reviewing the other policies, the Oshkosh has their mini storm sewer and lateral system, where they're paying 100% for the system and property owners are paying for the connections. Sheboygan has their rear yard drain system, paid for by the city, with a lot of caveats in terms of the easement and the access, kind of making it easy for the city to do this. In that case, the property owner also pays 100% for the connection. Iowa City and Sioux Falls both have programs in place where they're paying the entirety of the collection system, where they feel it's warranted, and the property owner is paying for the connection. And Wooddale offers the more general program where they provide up to 50%, up to $3,000 assistance for approved projects. And those projects can include connections to the public storm sewer. So in summary, locally, there is no standard approach to private drainage issues, and the local policies are all internal and not kind of available to be reviewed or standardized. The amount of local assistance to private property owners varied widely. So some assessed all city work back to the property owner at 100%. Others provided some level of city support for these systems, including Sun Prairie, where they would provide up to 100% if they were installing a system and replacing an existing buried sump connection. But there were always conditions for when the city would be willing to take on those projects, and again, much more likely to happen during an ongoing street project, or if the work would serve multiple properties, or the problem was causing a public safety issue. And then the broader examples I provided were more useful kind of ideas for program types, levels of support, the types of requirements that might be good to include in a program, as well as funding structure. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Claudia. Would you like do you want the PowerPoint control back as well?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it. Thanks.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so just moving on to next steps here. The next step is to get input from RCC and Board of Public Works on what a potential private drainage assistance program might look like in Fitchburg. Create draft application forms for the assistance program and draft ordinance language for mandatory connection to a sump pump system, collection system, and then come back to Board of Public Works and RCC for feedback on that. And then based on that feedback, we're going to put together a proposal for a new private drainage assistance program and present that to council. And then again, if this is approved, it would be a new citywide program. And the program would go into effect after budget becomes available to fund the program. And with that, I was hoping to open this up for input from the Board of Public Works. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time or if we should take public comment first. Let me know if I should just go ahead or.
I think it'd be an appropriate time. The only, Dana, would you like to speak to this at all? You still online, Dana Jacobs?
I am, sorry about that. I think I'd like to hear all of it before I just kind of reserve any comments I have towards the end.
Okay.
I think it'd be more appropriate to hear all of the comments first.
Okay.
Thank you, Dana. Yeah, many of the things, the problems mentioned by Claudia, Dana and her husband Brian experienced those in their side yard. So, okay, open it up to the board here then for
All right.
comments. Or Claudia, did you want to say something first?
I did. So I was going to have a little bit of a guided discussion here.
Even better.
I put together maybe just thoughts as a starting point for different types of problems that we could address. And this is just a starting point, and I was hoping to get feedback on each one of these slides here. So the first one was a common swale, where at the bottom of the swale, you might put in a new public inlet or an end wall. That's a pretty common issue, is that the property at the very bottom of the swale doesn't drain well. And so what's being, I guess, proposed on the screen here is there would be an application form for assistance regarding common swale issues. In order to be considered a common swale, it must serve at least 4 lots. The solution will include a new public stormwater infrastructure, generally either an end wall or an inlet, as well as a pipe that goes out to the right of way. There would need to be a permanent public stormwater easement granted to the city at no cost. This is very similar to what we saw at different municipalities that actually do this type of work in private backyard private backyard areas. The minimum width for that easement would be 20 feet. So it likely would require at least 2 property owners to work together to grant that easement, because there often isn't enough space on the side of a house to have that width of an easement. Survey and easement documents to be prepared by the landowners as part of the application package. Restoration at the end of putting in this inlet and pipe would be to grass and straw. And then if it's a very heavily landscaped area, any additional landscaping, sod, fence repair, replacement of raised flower beds, or whatever else happens to be there that needs to be torn up in order to put in this new infrastructure, that would need to be paid for by the property owner. And then any connections to the new public line would be 100%. So for example, if we put in this backyard inlet and other people wanted to drain tile their backyards and connect to that inlet, that would be 100% the property owner's responsibility. So I just put that there as maybe my takeaway of what might be a good program based on looking at these other programs that exist. I have similar slides for other scenarios, but I was hoping to get feedback on this one first.
Claudia, how would somebody at the city know if this program was successful or not?
Well, I think the success would be if we make this program available and people apply for it, and we install storm sewer that are solving people's problems, I think that would be one measure of a success.
Do we have documented right now what the actual problems are and the rate of the problems that we're experiencing?
So a lot of times private property issues don't even get brought to the city because a lot of people will just install these types of drain tile or grading or whatever without even reaching out to the city. So I would say, especially since our policy is that we don't have any sort of assistance for these types of issues, we don't have a really good, I guess, database of where all of these exist.
And then what's the benefit to the city? Are we looking to reduce our overall costs? Or are we looking to have less water go into our system?
The benefit would be providing a service to the residents. I don't think this would necessarily be a benefit to the right of way. It would just be a service provided.
Okay. And then my final question is, do we have actual staff to develop and support and maintain this program?
Well, I know we requested another part-time stormwater engineer as part of the new budget cycle. So I think we would need to have a cap on how many of these we do a year and how much and how we prioritize those. If we do like 2 or 3 a year or something like that, I think it would be manageable. If we're trying to fix 20 problems for people every year, this could be a very time-consuming program.
Claudia, what type of cost are we looking at, if you could take a guess?
Let's see. The cost to install an inlet and a pipe going out of it, if we decided not to do concrete, a lot of times we do concrete, but that's because it's under the roadway. If we decided not to do that, I would say this would be in the certainly under the $8,000 range. Nick, do you have a better idea?
Oh, that's helpful.
No, I don't have a better cost than that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I guess so. First of all, I would think that I noticed one thing you don't have in here at all, which many of the other programs did, was that it had to be related to an existing street project. Now, I realize that these are in backyards, and so then you're draining out to the street, so it might not be important in this one, but it seems to me that, I mean, is this for just, I mean, how could you break the difference between it seems like this problem could be handled from new construction by not allowing, people to change the drainage pattern so that you have these problems that exist. Now, I understand under existing or, older neighborhoods, you said, yes, sometimes things change, but things don't normally change on their own. Usually it is a property owner that has made some kind of a modification. They put a berm in their backyard because they were trying to get some privacy, or they were adding landscaping where there wasn't things before, and they built up areas and those kinds of things. So it seems like it's a self-created problem to me in a lot of cases. So I'm not sure that I think that there's, like Michael said, what's the benefit to the city? And like you said, it's providing a service to the residents who are having the problem, but it's more of a cost and a detriment and a staff issue to the city, to me. So I'm having a little bit of maybe conflict internally, because none of the adjacent communities really that we are nearby are doing this type of thing or don't have some type of a formal program. So are we setting a precedent, or are we trying to solve a problem that isn't really the city's problem?
I'll let you ponder Kim's
Yeah, can I-
questions here while Julia asks you a few more.
Is ready? Okay. So I am Julia Ratafrata. I represent the district where this problem is. I want to let you know that this is in your package. You have a map of all the houses that are affected. So, and I want to ask a couple of questions, and then the question is, what are the benefits for the city? I want to say, what are the benefits for the residents first? All of this group of neighbors here are having all of these flooding issues in the backyard. So I think it's our responsibility as a city to at least to find solution for how to mitigate this issue. And I know that there is a cost associated that we can split with the residents, but I think the benefit is to provide to these people to stay in the city and to have, and they can enjoy the backyard, or they have all the issues and all the extra expenses that they are doing in order to take the water from the backyard. I have seen with my own eyes what happened in summer when it rained a lot in some of these backyards. Second, it doesn't matter if other municipalities they are not doing. It doesn't matter that we can do that or we can provide something. It doesn't. I don't care what other municipalities are doing. I care what we should do for our neighbors. So my question is, Claudia, is so you mentioned that. So the solution for this parcel is to create that public inlet or end wall. That one is the solution for. And my other question is, have you considered also to use the vegetation as another way to, to improve this drainage in the backyard, to change the vegetation to maybe to convert part of the grassy area to a more like a prairie where they can, water can be absorbed better? I don't know, have you considered those two?
So generally, if you have, I think what Dana has been seeing in her backyard, a lot of it has been caused by sump pumps that run continuously. And when you have a constant supply of water and a very flat pitch, I don't think, well, I know that changing the vegetation is not going to be a real solution. You need a pipe to take that water away. Vegetation is good for a lot of other scenarios, but for this particular scenario, just changing out the grass and changing it to natives or something that uses water more quickly is not going to solve sump pumps running continuously and providing constant supply of water.
Okay.
So you did say, Claudia, that this would be a citywide program. I guess I'm a little bit confused. You only notified the people in this East Sherrill, this area, where I guess maybe where the problem has been brought to your attention. But it would apply citywide. So any 4 neighbors who have a water issue, be it something that one of them did or anybody did, they would be eligible for this program to try to solve their water issue. Is that correct?
That is correct. So this was done as part of the Sherrill Drive stormwater study. So that's why it was sent to the same group of people who have been receiving notifications regarding task 1. And they're also receiving notifications regarding this second task as well. We don't have a way or a cost-effective way to send a direct mailing to everyone in the city, because you're right, everyone in the city would be impacted by this program. But if this did go through and if this was something that we put in place, we could do an outreach campaign to get the word out that this is available, so people in other areas would be aware and know that this is an opportunity for them as well.
So is it a fair assumption to make that these problems are more typical in older neighborhoods rather than in new construction, or is that not a fair assumption to make?
I think that is a fair assumption. And in new neighborhoods, we are looking at ways to prevent these problems from occurring in the future by changing different processes, by changing our processes. That's, I guess, a different discussion. But in terms of future neighborhoods going forward, we're really hoping to have a better process to avoid these types of problems. And then for older neighborhoods, you have more time for settling or homeowners who have made changes to the landscape. And then if you get really, really into very old neighborhoods, a lot of those were just built with the existing topography, very little thought to stormwater at all. So yes, I think that's a fair assumption.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add, whose fault is it? I would say the developer didn't design it adequately, but we accepted it, unfortunately. I'd like to help. I don't want the stormwater utility to incur large costs for these private things, but I would like to find a way to help the homeowners resolve their problems if we can do it at a modest cost. Someone's yard is unusable, it's miserable, but they're not getting any break on their taxes either, I can tell you that. So that'd be the only comment I'd have. Anyone else? Michael or Jim? Jim would like to go first, and then Mike, if Michael had anything.
So Claudia, you mentioned that personnel could be an issue. So are you saying that we would probably have to go from a half-time engineer to a full-time engineer if this program would go through?
I think we'd have to put this program in place and see what the need is for this program. I think it's very hard to assess ahead of time how demanding this program would be. I will say that a lot of times, just interacting with residents does take a lot of time because people have questions, and of course that's very reasonable, it's their backyard. So I would anticipate that even though these might be small dollar amount projects, that they would take quite a bit of staff time. That being said, it's hard to predict. So I would say if we went forward with something like this, let's put it in place, put a cap on the number that can be served in a given year, and then we'll have information after that on whether or not we can expand the program or bring it back if it's taking up too much staff time, et cetera.
And since we're taking in the town of Madison, some of these issues could be part of the town. I know you probably can't answer that right now, but it's possibly some of these issues could be part of the town coming in also, correct?
It's definitely possible. I would say I'm not familiar with, obviously the residents in the town of Madison don't reach out to me currently if they're having private backyard drainage issues. So I'm not familiar.
Would you put a consideration in here? I noticed in several of the other ones that you reviewed that you don't have in here, is that if you installed this inlet and then the pipe to it, requiring people to connect to that drainage system, so you don't have like one or two people that do and then the rest of them that don't. So I guess I would suggest that maybe that would be a consideration that you should add, is that if people apply for this and if the city does go through the expense of putting it in, that all the people that would benefit from it are required to connect into the system.
I think that's a good point.
That would be assuming they had a sump pump, right? Yeah.
This is only for sump pumps.
Yeah.
But if it's only for sump pumps, but if it is also just because of heavy rainfall, there's low-lying areas, whatever, in their backyard, that they could connect to this that would drain. I could see where it could be an assistance to that too.
And I want to make sure that I'm following here too. So the pumps are maybe low-lying areas that maybe connect to an inlet is that water being discharged? I guess, where is that water being discharged? I think it might be missing that part.
So this is specifically talking about putting an inlet in a backyard to collect water from a common swale, so it doesn't impact the downstream areas from that inlet. And the feasibility of that would have to be assessed as part of this. In the case of Dana Jacobs, who's on the line, there is an inlet nearby that we could drill into the back of that. It's just in the front of her home. And so there would need to be a way for us to actually drain this inlet. Otherwise,
I guess that's the question. Where does that water drain? Is that water going into the city's system?
yes.
So we're actually taking water off of people's backyards, putting it into our city system and taxing our city system as a additional service to residents?
And just to be clear, that's the intended
Okay.
destination for this water based on the original design, is
Okay.
that these backyard drainage swales would eventually get into the city system. It's just that it's flat in certain areas, so it's getting kind of hung up before it can get there. But that's the intended destination.
And, you know, I've been on the board for long enough to know that our city's system is it depends on where you're at in the city. Some are overtaxed and need wider pipes and all this other good stuff, you know, this area included. And then, you know, we've got some bigger pipes other ways. And I mean, just looking at the additional water that might be coming in, that's a little scary.
And I would say this is probably going to provide more assistance in terms of just helping the area dry out rather than conveying a lot more water to the storm sewer system. I guess the problem that's trying to be solved, at least in this specific scenario, is a soggy backyard, not flooding. So the water is getting from point A to point B, but it's causing sogginess along the way. And that sogginess is not going, by getting rid of that, that's kind of like a trickle. It's not going to cause issues for our system, I guess is the bottom line.
Okay.
Just a couple of comments, then we'll close this discussion. First, Dana, did you want to say anything?
I did. I was kind of waiting until everybody kind of got through. So, you know, I can only speak to my specific situation. We bought our house about 7 years ago, and I've been trying to move some of these water projects forward for the 7 years we've been here. We bought in the winter. It was covered with snow and didn't even know that we had a sump pump issue in the drainage down the side of our yard and all of those things until the spring when our yard was a swamp. So, you know, we've done quite a bit as homeowners. We've sunk our sump pump line to a rock channel that leads out to the street that then drains into the sewer to help with some of the swamping that we've had in our backyard at our own cost, and have tied in with our next door neighbor who has the same issues. But, you know, there's a couple of things that I think are important to understand about this project. You know, when we talk about whose responsibility is and who caused it and all of those things, our house is older. It's 20 some odd years old. I lost track of how many, but it's definitely one of the older homes. And so I understand what Claudia showed at the very beginning in terms of what is supposed to happen with the drainage. It's supposed to come down and sheet off to the side. But if you come to this neighborhood and you look at what happens when it rains heavy, there'll be nearly no water coming on the two side streets, and it's flooded on our street. It doesn't come the way it is supposed to. Regardless of why it's happened, it doesn't work the way it was intended. And I will tell you, there are many homes that have berms behind us, all the way up Richardson, all the way up not Charleston, Jacqueline, many of those homes have built berms over the years. In fact, my next door neighbors have berms. So I'm quite sure that that has some impact on it. But the reality is what it has done, it has forced a larger amount of water to come through the center of those yards and into ours and our next door neighbors' backyards, because it's no longer going out to the street. And then what has happened over the years with settling and everything else, it sits in pools all along our back fence, our side fence. We have a whole stretch of it that goes through the middle of our yard off to the side. It does it in the front yard, and our neighbors have the same problems. I mean, there's points when we can't mow large sections of our grass, and it's not just wet. I mean, it's swampy. There is standing water. I've had ducks swimming in my backyard for periods of time. That's how much water we're talking. So it's really not just a trickle. And when you talk about this water increasing the amount going to the storm sewer that's out in our street, it's the same amount. It's eventually going to make it out there. There's no place else for it to go. And because we're in a high water table, it takes quite a while for it to happen. And therefore, it puts a lot of extra stress on our sump pump, which runs continuously all year long. And sometimes it runs nonstop. We actually had a service come out when we first moved here to sync our sump pump because the noise was nonstop in our house and it was maddening. So, besides the fact that the electric cost is astronomical for that thing to run nonstop. So I just want you guys to understand what is really happening. And then you couple that with what we deal with in the front yard, which is, Sherrill Drive flooding 16 feet into our yard and all of those. And we have a lot of water in this area. I can't speak to the rest of Fitchburg and how many other people might be experiencing this or where we have low-lying areas where this might be a common issue. I do know it happens not just in our little block, but the next block over experiences the same problem. I've seen the standing water. Luckily, theirs is a treed area that's common space and isn't in someone's yard as much. But, I do second Dave's comment in that we're assessed for our whole land as if it's usable, and it's not for a good period of time. And that's a little frustrating as a homeowner based on the taxes that we're paying in this area. So one thing, Claudia, that I would ask is that as you look at developing a policy, if you guys decide to go forward with it, I know you mentioned 4 lots in common to make this a program. If you think about the way our houses are, we have large lots in this neighborhood, and therefore it might be 3 homeowners. And so I would ask that you consider lot size versus just how many people, because, if you think about Bob's house behind us, his yard goes across 3 people. And so normally it probably would have been 3 people's yards, but it's 1 yard because it's so large. So you might consider a size versus just a number of homeowners, I guess was
Right,
my one.
And just to clarify, I can see why that's confusing the way it's written. What I meant to say was that in order for it to be considered a common swale, the swale must serve at least 4 lots.
We got that covered.
Yeah, you do.
Got it. I understand completely now. Thanks for clarifying. So I know you guys talked about the grass areas, and I agree with Claudia in terms of that not being, we have many planted areas in our yard. We have willow trees that are 60 feet tall, and the reason they're 60 feet tall is because we have so much water in our backyard that they have become massive. So it does help with the water. I will tell you those gigantic willow trees, they're quite an expense to maintain and take care of. But we've spent thousands of dollars just to keep them in good shape. But I don't think that we couldn't plant enough vegetation to soak up the water that's there. We'd have to then plant a good, I wouldn't say half of our backyard, but probably easy 1/3 of it to even make a difference. And so that then goes back to how much of our yard is actually usable for us as assessed property then. So I have, a little concern about that. I do think that probably newer homes aren't having as many impacts, and part of it may have to do with how developers looked at stormwater 25 or 30 years ago versus how they do today. I'd like to hope we've improved in those areas. And then when you speak to the impacts to all, you know, I get that the city services, you know, a larger area, but I do think that there are some issues that are in some areas of the city of Fitchburg that aren't in all of them. And I think that this is probably an uncommon thing. I mean, I think when you get out into the farmland, it might be more common, but I think the fact that, Claudia, you're not getting a ton of calls probably says more that it isn't being experienced in a huge part of the city of Fitchburg. I wouldn't know that for sure, but I would hope that even if it's not a universal problem, you would consider it a big enough problem in this area, which is, you know, basically from Richardson all the way to Fish Hatchery and the neighborhoods up and down towards McKee Farms Park. I mean, it's a fairly large section of this area that experiences this water issue. And then the other element for us is that, you know, there are times my husband has a vegetable garden in the backyard. I mean, like I said, we've tried creative ways to soak up as much water as we can. And there are times of the year we can't actually, and he has to pick at night with a headlamp on because the mosquitoes are so bad from all the standing water. So there is an element of public health issue that goes along with this that I just want to bring up as well for something to consider, because you know, standing water does breed mosquitoes, especially in the heat of the summer, and it is a consistent problem that we have as well. So those are just some things to consider as you guys decide how to go about this. You know, we've kind of attacked our sump pump problem and we feel like we're in a better space with that, but regardless of what we do with that, it does not address the other water issues that are happening in this area. So
Thank you, Dana.
Considering.
Appreciate your comments.
I apologize. I actually had 2 more slides.
Go ahead, Claudia.
Okay, thank you. So another type of issue that we might run into, or another request that we've received, is for the city to be involved in grading along the entire length of a private backyard swale. And this might be a swale that crosses 40 lots, for example. So I put here some ideas on what I think might make that a viable program. So city to provide managerial role in addressing regrading of swale, city not to get involved unless all homeowners are on board for assistance. Application for assistance regarding common swale issues must be signed by all lot owners who would be affected. Temporary access easements must be granted to the city at no cost. Survey and easement documents to be prepared by the city and 100% assessed back to property owners. Must be signed by all homeowners before continuing forward with the project. Construction costs for regrading the entire length of a backyard swale that would then remain private would be 100% assessed to the property owner. Restoration would be to grass, seed, and straw. Additional landscaping, sod, fence repair, raised flower bed repair, anything like that would be 100% the property owner's responsibility. So those were the things I thought might be needed in order for the city to get involved in regrading an entire length of common swale in a private area. I guess I'll open it up for comments on this one. If this is something Board of Public Works thinks we should be getting involved in, or if there are other things we should be considering.
My only comment is it's going to be very hard to get 100% of the people to agree to anything, especially if they know by agreeing to this they will be assessed the cost compared to everybody else. I mean, it's next to impossible. You can have one person that maybe doesn't experience the drainage problem because they are higher land or something else. The swale still has to go across from that or through their backyard. So I would just suggest that if you look at this, you make it a very high percentage, but I wouldn't make it 100%.
Anything else, Claudia?
Just one more slide here. Do we want to provide assistance on other types of private backyard drainage issue concerns? Is there a threshold for city involvement, 3 or 4 homes impacted? Do we want to put a cap on city assistance? So for example, Wooddale, they have a backyard assistance program and there's a cap of $3,000 per project. And then do we want to have a cost share or city paid? Wooddale provides 50% cost share up to that cap. I don't know if anyone has any other types of backyard drainage areas they have in mind that they think the city should be involved in. But if so, I guess go ahead and speak now. And if not, then I have just one more slide.
I don't think we have any more comments. I'd like to say, one thing, anything we would approve, I'd certainly want a cap on yearly amount. I would have to have that. Secondly, I'm very leery, I'm leery of lawyers that, that the lawyer in the neighborhood, now we have a policy, well, you do it now or I'm gonna sue you. So I like to stay out of that legal jeopardy all the time. But I guess I would ask maybe you give us a draft of a policy, work on that, or throw some things out and send it to the board for review, and we'll give you some comments back, and then we can probably discuss with the full council at some point. Does that sound all right, Claudia?
That sounds really great. I appreciate everyone's time tonight.
All right, thank you. Nick, appreciate your time. Dana?
Thanks so much, guys, for considering it. I appreciate it greatly.
I feel it necessitates us looking at that fairly hard. Okay, next agenda item 3, Bravo, review of utility August P-card purchases and September checks. Do we have any questions on these? I might have had one, I got a page down here.
Yeah, Bill, on page 7 of the packet, it looks like there were some stays at Fairfield Suites for the WRWA conference. What was that conference and what did we learn?
This was for the Wisconsin Rural Water Association conference, and we had staff that went there for training on groundwater, water associated issues. They had some technical conferences or items on that regarding the water, the DNR, et cetera, things like that, updates on those. I haven't heard back from them yet, but we're planning on having a lunch and learn to discuss those items.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if there's anything that does come out of that from your lunch and learn, if you can let us know next meeting, that'd be great.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bill? I have none. Let's move on to Agenda item 4 alpha, approval of October 4th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approving the October 4th Board of Public Works meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, agenda item 5, report from department head, Mr. Bill Walke.
We're out there trying to get things wrapped up before the snow flies. We're out there paving this week and next week on all of our projects, so look for pavers out there. Yeah, Scott's pretty excited about that because we're paving up in his neighborhood. We also are just trying to get like I said, just the maintenance before the snow flies, the roadside mowing, streets swept, anything that could get hit is repaired, and before the concrete's, we don't get concrete anymore, so we're just out there trying to get things wrapped up before winter.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? I just had one. I almost ruined my bike coming here. I don't know what happened, if the concrete exploded or some down on the intersection, right down here on Fish Hatchery and Lacey. There was a big chunk of concrete laying in there. Is that our responsibility or is that the county's, do you know?
That's Dane County's. We'll make them aware of that issue.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you, Bill. Then we'll move on to our agenda items. First one, Resolution R 19820 or 19921, authorizing acceptance of the 2021 Uptown Improvements Streetlights bid. Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second? I'll second. Second by Lobdell. Bill, context?
We've purchased some streetlights that are going to be going in on Central Park Place, Green Market Drive, and East Sherrill Parkway. And this is the contract for the installation of those, as well as the installation of the handholds that go along with those.
Did we purchase any spares with these?
We do have spares for the poles. This is just for the installation
Okay,
contract.
all right, thank you. Any other questions on this one?
You only received one bid. Was it in line with what you thought it was going to be, Bill?
Yeah, our engineer's estimate was around $50,000. It came in a few thousand less than that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 199-21, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, 5 Bravo, Resolution R 196-21, authorizing intersection of East Sherrill and South Saline to be controlled by a protected intersection. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Gronetsky.
I will be abstaining from
Okay.
participating in this item.
Thank you, Kim. So this is part of the Saline Road redesign. This was discussed at the, what was the date of Andrew's meeting to review the road?
Sorry.
Andrew?
My
Yeah,
internet,
there
my
he
internet
is.
froze real fast there. Sorry.
Okay, hi, Andrew. Would you discuss this when you had the public meeting? Would you like to jump in here and
Sure.
give us the background?
Yep, yeah, definitely. So I can share my screen, so this helps me. And so, so really, so we've met about 9 times with small group meetings, talking about a lot of different things about the corridor. One of which was this intersection at East Sherrill and South Saline. We have 3 potential options: a single lane roundabout, traditional traffic signal, and a protected intersection traffic signal. And so far, the protected intersection has emerged as the preferred alternative with local residents, mainly due to its bicycle and pedestrian friendly enhancements. And so with that, I can share kind of what the, I guess, what they look like. I think that's helpful to kind of ground folks. Can you see the intersection there? Okay.
Yes, we can.
So what you're seeing here is, and hopefully it's, let me try that. Okay. Is on the bottom, you can see basically the future year level of service, assuming an always stop control. And so unfortunately, we're at level of service E and F, so that's 35 plus seconds per, on average for each vehicle. So really it's just untenable, especially that southbound through / left. And so unfortunately, that means an always stop isn't an option here. And so we're left with either a single lane roundabout or a traffic signal. And then for some reason it says it's paused, so I'll try that again. Okay. And then, so these are the three options. You're all very familiar with the single lane roundabout. I just want to note that there is existing cycle tracks to the east of this intersection, so we'd be connecting to that. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same as typical. We have the shared use path on the west side that the roundabout will be connecting into, and then we connect back into on-street facilities on either side of the intersection. I'll just briefly run over the traditional intersection. So, this is, very used to this. This is a traditional signal, one lane for lefts, one lane for throughs, and in some cases, when we have enough right turns, a lane for right turns. Again, we would either be carrying the bicycle lanes through or terminating them if we have a right turn bay, or if we don't have a right turn bay. And then the protected intersection, I'll just dwell on this a little bit more, only because it's a little bit new. And so really, it's a traditional signal plus these teardrop islands. And really, the teardrop islands are out there just to reduce the turning radius to slow down right turning vehicles. So if you're a right turning vehicle and you're taking a right, you depending upon how we time this, you can turn permissively. Let's say in a late green, for example, you would start turning here. And the nice thing is that a vehicle is able to turn right, square up to the either the bike lane or the crosswalk, and get out of the through lane. So the through vehicles can keep going, and this person doesn't have back pressure and can make a nice slow right turn and it increases visibility. So that's really the win for the protected intersection treatments. I will say that they come, and I'll just also mention kind of for those who aren't familiar with the bike treatment. So, you'll come from an on-street facility here, you'll come up onto a cycle track, and then on green, so basically you'll pass here on green, you will go forward, and if you want to take a left turn, you'll stop here and then take a left turn here and continue on. If you don't want to take a left turn, then you can just continue on to your lane. So it basically just improves visibility of bikes and pedestrians. And other than that, it functions very similarly to a traditional signal. So with that, I'll mention that there are some pros and cons, mainly that, with the roundabout, we've talked a lot about the pros and cons between roundabouts and signals. Roundabouts, do have that reduction in right angle crashes. They have lower off-peak delay, so you don't have to stop. Whereas the signals, in both cases, you'd be talking about, potentially more predictable, more comfortable bicycle and pedestrian crossings. And then that's even more so with the protected intersection. Unfortunately, so the traditional signal is the lowest cost at 1.9 or basically 1 million. The roundabout comes in next at basically 1.1 million. And then the protected intersection has a range. We likely think it's the highest cost alternative because of some of the custom work you have to do with the concrete islands, some of the additional push buttons you have to have, and truncated domes for those ramps. But we do have a big range in there just because it is new. As far as I know, it hasn't been tried in Wisconsin. And so it comes with a little bit higher price tag. Now, that's a big range. It's probably going to be on the lower end of that, but we really just don't know. So we want to offer kind of the full breadth there. And then there could be some potential increase in maintenance cost, just depending upon how we clear snow out of those kind of shared bike and pedestrian facilities. So with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Board members? I'll jump in then. I see it very problematic for the snow removal. I could see them spending a lot of time trying to get that cleared out, and maybe for the one or two biking enthusiasts that still ride in the deep snow. I'm not sure it's worth that cost. You know, they go through intersections all the time. I just see our snow crews, you know, spending a lot of time at this intersection. Board members, your thoughts on that?
Andrew, is there any data on this protected intersection that makes it better than the traffic signal? Or is this just too new to have any data on that?
I mean, I'll say, so there are definitely several, I would say 20 or so in the country, at least. And I think they really started picking up in like the early 2000s, and there's been, but they're mainly concentrated in larger cities. And so I'd say we don't have an incredible amount of information to say objectively that they're safer. I mean, certainly they slow down turns and increase visibility, which should be safer, but I don't have a direct corollary. And knowing that there's not any in Wisconsin, you know, it might be hard to say, you know, applicability. Yeah. And then just a quick note on maintenance. We do, I failed to mention, it is definitely more maintenance, but there is an existing parks plow route of that west side share use path, so that it could be added on top of that. And we'll be careful to keep the widths consistent so that they don't have to have a different vehicle.
So this would be one of those things for my, I don't want to say edification, but just kind of comfort level, is this would be something that if we wanted to move forward with this sort of a design, that this would be something that gets put into a long-term plan of you know, potential intersection redesigns and going from there. This one just kind of, it seems, I don't want to say it snuck up on me here a little bit, but I was thinking that, you know, this two options were going to be either a roundabout or, you know, the signal. And then this one just kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere without having any sort of, hey, this is how our city could implement something like this when we design our roadways. We've got, you know, this option here, we've got this option here, and then we've got this other third option. And in having that in there, I don't necessarily know, you know, kind of having roundabouts on one section and that's the best for that. And then, you know, wasn't an option then, and now it's an option over here. And as we go through and start redeveloping intersections, you know, I'd just like that to be part of a citywide effort, just to say, you know, this is part of our plan to have these things built in and taken into consideration when we redo intersections.
Sure. Yeah, I will say this type of intersection doesn't lend itself well to many intersections in Fitchburg. We have on-street facilities, you know, on Cyene, we have cycle tracks on East Sherrill. So it's very conducive here. I wouldn't say it would be applicable on many other intersections.
And I'm thinking specifically of the other end of town with the Lacey Road and Seminole. You know, it kind of sort of looks like there are a lot of the same concerns that would happen there, as far as you know, some of the multi-use path issues that are close to an intersection here. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Andrew, why wasn't the, I guess why wasn't the roundabout, you know, why wasn't that the preferred, or what was the drawback?
Yeah, we took a straw poll, and you know, the roundabout, I think some folks felt like, you know, because the quick trip, future quick trip, or you know, some sort of pedestrian amenity on the southeast corner was going to be constructed, that there was going to be a lot more pedestrian foot and bicycle traffic. And I think just there's not quite yet a comfort level to cross, you know, those kind of uncontrolled legs. As I've mentioned a few times in past meetings, kind of that departing leg of a roundabout, when the vehicle still has the right of way. You know, it just kind of creates a less comfortable dynamic for pedestrian crossing, especially for
Fair
folks
enough.
that are visually
Thank
impaired.
you.
So I think that folks are really picking up on that and saying that would be difficult to cross there.
So the just the straight, you know, the straight intersection, what's the downside, you know, because when I come down here, I come to City Hall at least once a week on my bicycle, and I cross Lacey and Fish Hatchery Road, and it's just a straight intersection, and I seem to get across it fine. what's the disadvantage of the straight one, you know, that, or I guess I'm not seeing that big of a gain, you know, I'm seeing additional maintenance, future maintenance, with this. I'm not sure there's that big of a gain, you know, this will not be as busy as, Lacey and Fish Hatchery, you know, where I come across on my bike.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, mainly what we're saying is, yeah, you're exactly right that we're not going to expect as much traffic there. So, a traditional traffic signal would be, you know, in some ways kind of prioritizing vehicle traffic. You know, we'd have longer crossing lengths, you know, potentially higher speed turning vehicles. And so in this case, basically because we have a little bit lower volume, we're really able to capitalize that and make it a little bit more comfortable for, you know, the cyclists and pedestrian and that are crossing here. So I think, yeah, the gain is really slower turning vehicle. You know, basically the big crash pattern at intersections is kind of right turn or left turn hooks, you know, where, you know, folks aren't expecting to see a cyclist or pedestrian.
Okay, I got you there.
Yep.
I'm not can you bring it up again? I'm not sure how it helps the pedestrians. Maybe
Oh, sure.
I'm a little slow here. So.
Yep. No, I mean, it's a lot. Yeah, I totally get it.
Because the bikers are out there, if they're like me, you know, they got a myriad of risks every day that they take, and you know, they can mitigate them. The pedestrians, they don't quite have the mitigation options. So.
Yep. Yeah, so basically what we'd be doing here would be reducing the crossing distance. So, okay. You know, the medians slightly help that, but we're still going to time the signal so that you'll be able to cross from curb head to curb head. So pedestrians will be in this kind of red portion of concrete, and so they'll be further out into the intersection than what they typically would, you know, kind of back here. And so with that, they'll have a shorter crossing distance, and then also they'll benefit from these teardrop islands of having the right turning vehicles tee up to them and be slower.
Okay,
so
thank you. That explains it. Thank you. That's clear. Board members, any other questions? Yeah, you can ask a question. Yeah. No? Okay. All right. Then we'll call the vote then. All in favor of, I gotta get right to authorizing, or resolution R-19621, authorizing intersection of East Sherrill and South Saline controlled by a protective intersection, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed. Jim, did you vote?
I'm going to abstain. I
gonna
just don't
abstain?
have enough information right now.
Okay, so this does not pass. We're at 1-1 here. Okay, moving on. Next, we have resolution R-19421. R-19521, authorizing intersection of Lacey Road and Seminole Highway to be controlled by a roundabout. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Again, we've had public hearing on this intersection. We received a fair amount of public input. The vast majority of it, of the public input, has endorsed a right-of-way. The council members are almost unanimously in favor of a right-of-way. Traffic analysis. Roundabout, yeah. Thank you, Kim. The traffic has been analyzed both from a potential sporting facility to the south, and the queues have been analyzed, and that's all I know. What would, Andrew or Bill, would you like to add any more to this?
Andrew, you got anything?
I'm sorry, my connection's apparently bad tonight. I'm assuming you guys opened it up for me.
Yes. Yes,
I left
please.
you hanging, but I'll get back in the game. So yeah, so you guys have all seen this before. Mainly, meant to share my PowerPoint. Yeah, I mean, the resolution 119 passed earlier this year that included the design of the intersection with a staff recommended option. It passed council with the direction to hold an additional public meeting. We did that as Dave mentioned. We've received feedback and it was very consistent with the previous feedback we received. So that's all I have.
What's the approximate cost? And if I recall right, the roundabout was less costly than a full signalized intersection.
That's correct. In this particular case, we're looking at something like $2.5 million for the roundabout. And it's going to be, right now we're looking at 153 foot inscribed circles, very similar to the Nesbitt and Fitchburg roundabout size. So, and that both includes construction and right-of-way costs. We'll be needing to take right-of-way on 3 of the corners.
Okay. Jim, Michael, any questions on this? No? Okay. Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R195-21, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R194-21, authorizing approval of the second amendment to the fiber license agreement with SuperNet Communications. Do we have a motion to approve? I'll move to approve. Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Discussion. On what the second amendment is?
I'm going to turn this one over to Andrew as well.
Okay.
He's been dealing with this one.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of the history on this. So back last year, Resolution 1120 approved the original agreement. The first amendment to that agreement. So basically, we're installing. SuperNet's installing fiber in the city-owned conduit. The win for them is that they get a little bit of cost share on their fiber. The win for us is that we get our signal interconnect. Basically, that fiber we get to use, and we also don't have to locate the fiber, which can be costly. Each time someone calls 811 in that location, it has to be located. In addition to the responsibility to repair the fiber itself. So. And so we revised the agreement basically concurrent with when we installed it on the northern half of the project. And so that was kind of the original scope. It's just to install in the northern half from Greenwood Cross down to Traceway. We amended it just to clarify that should damage occur, the city's only responsible for the cost of the conduit, whereas SuperNet is responsible for repair and splicing the fiber. And then now, what we're proposing is to extend this agreement and basically see some of these same cost savings and reduce maintenance further down the corridor from Traceway to McKee for the full project length. So I will mention this will cost roughly $21,500, but will offset a higher cost of $29,000 currently included with the Fish Hatchery road contractor. So. The real reason we're doing this is to, double down on this partnership with SuperNet, and make it consistent across this whole corridor, to kind of realize this kind of win-win for them to get fiber installed in a already built conduit, and for us to get that reduced maintenance and locating cost.
Thank you, Andrew. Very good explanation. Board have any questions on this? It's very similar to, previously, as Andrew mentioned, previously approved. All right, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R194-21, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, 6 Echo, Resolution R192-21, approving the relocation order and TPP related to construction of Lacey Road from Fitchburg Road to the Badger State Trail. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Discussion. Bill or Andrew, do you want to say anything on this?
And I believe Andrew's got a little
Okay.
presentation on this one too.
All right.
Sure. Yeah, so this is the transportation project plat associated with the reconstruction of West Lacey Road. And so really what this does is it defines the locations that because of the project, we'll need to either have a temporary easement just for grading temporarily while we build the roadway, or a permanent easement, either in the case of a fee, which is we're actually buying the right of way, or a permanent limited easement, which in many cases here, we're talking about for stormwater management. So really, this is just to define what those areas are, so that we can have our consultant move forward with negotiations and then get those approved later on. So, I mean, I can certainly run through kind of the overall TPP. If folks have questions about any specific parcels, I'm happy to talk through that, or we can talk about the design.
Okay, before we go much farther, I'd like to read, I'm not going to read the full thing into a record, but we have attachment, questions on Lacey Road reconstruction project, origin, rationale, implications, and cost. 22 questions submitted to say by Jay Hockmuth and other residents, Jay, Rita, Cheryl, Tom, Joe, and Sue. And these questions, just questions 1 through 22, I'm not going to read them all into the public record. As my understanding, these have been answered by the city, and we'll be able to post this on the, post this somewhere for the residents to see. Is that our plan?
Yes, we're doing one final review of this early tomorrow, and they'll be posted tomorrow.
Just the questions range everything from TID to stormwater to, it's a wide range of very detailed questions. I think the city and staff for answering these, I believe these should answer the questions. I'm not anticipating that it will satisfy them, but satisfy their wishes on the project, but I would like the questions answered for them. Okay. So any other discussion on this? Okay. I would just add, I still feel like the project is overpriced and elements in it that are unnecessary. And so we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 19221 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Okay, so the motion carried. Michael, did you have a vote?
I vote, this is just for the easements, right?
Approving relocation or, yeah. Yes.
Yep. I was a yes.
Okay, so motion carries. Next, resolution R 100-21, set 2022 solid waste rates. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Lobdell, I'll say a second by Granetsky. Okay. Who would like to handle this one or give us an overview?
I'll take that.
All right, Bill?
We totaled up our total expenses for the refuse and recycling budget for 2022. And the $220 fee set that we are asking for is to offset the revenue cost, or to give the revenue to offset those expenses. Plus, we are also going into our reserve fund, about $33,000 or $35,000, somewhere in there, to bring that cost down to $220 per resident. The RCC, the Resource Conservation Commission, had placed a vote to reduce that to $215 per resident, and that would also take another approximately $29,000 from the reserves. So that would put our reserve limit was still within range between 15 and 25 at 23.9%. So we can't keep dipping in forever, but we are doing that in this case here.
Bill, what's our current rate?
Our current rate is $209 per property, and that would increase to 220 under this resolution. And as I mentioned, RCC, they passed a resolution at 215.
So I have a question. Is the increase, is it have to do with increases being passed through from the carrier? Or were they under a multi-year contract where we knew that that was going to be, or what? Why is the cost increasing?
The cost is increasing primarily due to the contract increase that we have from year to year. But we also have some capital improvement projects that we're trying to get done next year as well. So that was a part of the cost. That's probably about $3 or $4 of that $220 for the projects.
Bill, could you elaborate on the capital projects for the public watching?
Yes, we're looking to install a higher image camera system at our drop-off site to police people that are coming in and out from outside the community. We did a survey earlier this year where we estimate somewhere between 20 and 30% of the recycling drop-off that we get at the site is coming from outside the city. And we want the ability to be able to capture those license plates. Our current system does it, but it's very hit and miss. And we don't have the ability to actually see those license plate very well. So part of that $15,000 of that cost would be for the camera system. The remaining is for a compost screener. We place compost at all of our sites and for the public. We do rent the screener to come in a couple times a year, which is costing somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. And we feel that for a long-term investment of around $30,000, that'll $26,000 to $30,000 that the screener will cost. That will be a long-term savings for the city.
Thank you, Bill. I've had some, I've been questioned on this, the camera, and what my response is. I've been involved with this a long time, and if you have to go down there, if you're a city employee and have to go down there Monday after people have dumped brush in the pile where our yard waste has to be, and it's a mess. They don't even want to hate to even look down there on Monday morning, and the people that are doing this, they should be fined, and we just want a more orderly thing that would lower our city costs in the site. Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah, Bill, how much is the fine for someone coming in from out of the city?
A few years ago, if I remember right, it was around $189.
Kim?
That was going to basically be my question too, is that would we issue fines if it was that way? And, is that a potential revenue source for offsetting some of the cost for having the cameras?
Yeah, I'll have to talk to the finance director on how that money gets reallocated, but I believe it would go right back into the recycling fund after administration cost comes off.
Have we issued any fines ever that you know of?
We did 3 or 4 years ago when we had the ability to see, but the camera system has just deteriorated to the point we can't see anymore. So we were issuing, I would say, $2,000 to $5,000 in fines every year.
Michael, any questions?
No, but I would like to make an amendment to this resolution when ready.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a resolution to amend or modify this resolution to set the rate to $2.15 to match the recommendation from RCC.
Michael has recommended changing the rate from amendment to change it from 2.20 to 2.15. So we'll vote on that amendment. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? And Michael, I assume you're in favor of it too. All right. Motion to change the rate from 2.20 to 2.15. That amendment has passed. Now we vote on the overall amendment.
So just a
Go
minute,
ahead,
Bill,
Kim,
Bill,
I'm
could
sorry.
you summarize how much is in the reserves and we're within the limit? Where I was confused between percentages and actual numbers.
Currently, we have reserves at approximately 25.6%.
Okay,
And if we lower the rate to 215, we'll go down to 23.6%. We'll go down another 2%.
okay. And what is the target?
Our target is between 15 and 25%.
Okay, so we're still on the high end of the
Right.
target, so, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Then I'll call the vote on the, we're voting on the amended resolution, R 190-21. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, 6 Gulf, Resolution R 178-21, approval of inclusive playground, common earthwork at McKee Farms Park. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lobdell. Scott, are you there?
I am here. I
All right.
am here.
Game on.
Maybe just a quick update. We are working to get installed adjacent to the splash pad and inclusive playground. We did actually did a bid and received proposals, and the Common Council has approved the actual playground structure that's going to be installed. And then what we're working on is we're trying to get the site ready. If you recall, we did one bid which included this common earthwork. There was some sidewalk work involved in it, split rail fence, and some asphalt paths were included. And that bid came in at $141,000, which was almost double the engineering estimate. And the city and the Common Council did reject that bid. So what we did to try to keep the project going is we individually bid out the common earthwork, which basically what's going to happen with this project is the city is going to bring in fill to the site, and then we're going to hire South Central, or we're proposing to hire South Central to come in and do the grading work at a not to exceed price of $5,200 in order to get the site ready for the playground install. So that is the resolution before you guys tonight.
Questions for Scott?
When will the grading take place?
Hopefully this will be approved the first part of November. So that at that point, once it's approved, the city crew, they'll bring in the fill, and then hopefully we'll get it completed. Hopefully, in November. I'd really like to get the playground installed by the end of the year. That'll certainly be our goal, and we've got to, I guess, get the site ready for the playground first. So,
Scott, where are you getting the fill?
that's coming from the city.
Where in the city?
Well, I would suspect oh boy, that's a good question. Dave, I think we probably have Phil down at the Public Works building.
Okay, all right. Not gonna go into someone's hill in their backyard and take it out. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
We could probably create a swale somewhere. It sounds like people need a swale. We could maybe get some fill that way.
Yeah, okay. All
I
right.
don't mean to make light of it.
No, need a little levity. Kim, any questions? Michael? Okay. All in favor of resolution R 178-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you kindly, you guys.
Thank you,
Have a
Scott.
good night. See ya.
6 Hotel, Resolution R 159-21, a resolution approving a subdivision improvement agreement with Fitchburg Townhomes for public improvements along Notre Dame Drive. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. This one, we've had this a couple times before us, haven't we? Did we postpone this one?
We have, and we came to agreement with the developer late today. So I don't know if it's in the packet right now. We tried to get it in there through our on-base system, but I don't think it made it in there. But I'll go ahead and explain what it is. It's actually, the development is called Lacey Ridge LLC, and it's for the townhomes located at the intersection of Notre Dame Drive and Lacey Road. There's going to be approximately, I think it's 46 new townhomes going in that area, owner occupied, thank you. The developer is looking to put the public improvements in for that development. This would include a new road, storm sewer, sanitary sewer on Notre Dame Drive, sidewalk along both sides of the road. Also, there are some easements internal to the development for sewer and water extensions for both future extension to the west and internally within the development. The developer has agreed to those terms and is looking for approval of the agreement. There's nothing super out of the ordinary with this one. The developer is paying the full cost of all the infrastructure improvements. They are looking to stay within the bounds of their property, so they won't be grading outside of their property for improvements, so they may have to make some modifications there. And there is an easement that has to be relocated for MG&E that's currently within the right-of-way that we're asking that to be released. So that's usually a sticking point, but we've asked for that to be concurrent with acceptance of the final acceptance of improvements. So prior to acceptance by the city, we put the developer on notice that we have to have that release in place before we accept those improvements. And so that would delay further development in that area for that development.
I saw, because Dina did email it out to us shortly before this meeting, there were a couple things in red, something about a driveway or a garage pad that had to be removed, and something about a driveway apron that was in red on the resolution that we received. Does that ring a bell? Or?
No, I didn't see that one, sorry.
Okay. I don't have it in front of me because I don't have my email in front of me, but something about a garage pad that was encroaching on the right-of-way or something that needed to be removed, but nothing out of the ordinary as far as you know.
No, the owner had taken the garage down for the encroachment, and then there's just a small sliver of concrete that remains in there that needs to be taken out.
Jim, anything? Michael?
Nothing.
Are they trying to start work this year yet on these things, Bill?
Yeah, they're looking to start by in November.
Okay.
With the agreements.
But you would not, we would not be accepting the improvements unless this easement is released? Is that the sequence?
That's correct. So toward the end of construction, they would have to release that easement from MG&E.
So that wouldn't be until next year at some point.
Next year
anyway.
sometime.
There's nothing in the easement right now. There's no facilities in there right now, you know?
There's existing power
Oh.
along there. It goes down into Fahey Fields. It goes straight down the lot line.
So the developer, he'll be taking care of those relocation costs. The city has no responsibility for any of that.
Correct. There's no responsibility by the city for cost.
He still has to negotiate, he still has to get that agreement with MG&E though.
That's correct.
It's not our deal. Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R1, I can't read here anymore, 15921, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next Board of Public Works meeting is November 1st. If you can't make it, let me know. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Lobdell, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, we are adjourned.